Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada.
Time for another edition of the Standing By podcast. Good morning, Ted.
Say, friends.
It's weird starting a podcast. As an ex-radio guy, it's kind of weird because there's nobody listening at the time, and there's no red light that goes on, and
There's no song fading.
There's no song fading exactly. It's just our producer Matthew says, "Away you go."
Yeah, anytime now.
Anytime, and here we are for this Wednesday, November the 20th. Hi there, I'm Terry DeMonte. That's Ted Bird. Thanks for joining us. The Standing By podcast, a Montreal-based, Montreal-focused, Montreal podcast, Montreal.
It is that.
In case you missed it. Brought to you by many friends. Our title sponsor is the UPS Store Canada, and boy, are they getting ready to be busy for a couple of reasons. Number one, the holiday season is upon us. If you've got relatives in England or Indiana, you're going to be needing the UPS store because in keeping with tradition, the Canada Post people have decided to strike during the holiday period. It's the same old shit that they do all the time. It seems to happen every couple of years. And
You're not suggesting the Postal Union is taking advantage of the season, are you?
No. I would never suggest that. And it's pretty aggravating because from where we sit, anyway, I don't want to get on a rant because what I want you to do is go to the UPS store because they'll handle it for you. They'll handle your shipping. They'll handle your packaging. So don't gamble on the post office. Get yourself to the UPS store. There are over 400 locations across the country now. So if you got packages, like I said, that you need to get to England or Italy for the family in time for the holidays, UPS will make that happen. They'll pack them. They'll make sure they're secure. They'll tell you how to go about it. And it'll probably cost you a little bit more than it would to send a brown parcel with the folks at the post office. But one thing you'll know is your package is going to get there.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, and it's going to be a very, very busy time for the UPS store because of the postal disruption. If you're looking to get parcels shipped or you want to get a mailbox for your business because you've got too many packages at home that are coming to your house, you don't want your house to be overrun, you can get yourself a post office box. They'll set up a mailbox for you there at the UPS location near your house. And as I say every time we talk about the UPS store, there's an entrepreneur, much like yourself, if you run your own business, in that store running that business. So they know what you're going through. They know how to help you.
It's a corporate brand, but it's run with a small business mentality.
Sure is.
And not just the postal disruption, the Port of Montreal.
Yeah, there's another thing.
Labor dispute as well. My understanding is that's been resolved, but it will take weeks.
Yeah.
Let me read the exact quote here from Global News. It will take several weeks to fully reestablish the fluidity of the supply chains for both imports and exports.
Yeah. And that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen with the mail. The mail that somebody has already sent you is in a tub somewhere, and it's going to pile up, and then it's going to take a long time to filter through the system. So
you can avoid all that by going to the upsstore.ca.
Yep. And as Ted has pointed out, terrific business blog there, too, on the UPS Store website that has all kinds of tips for you. The UPS Store Canada, our title sponsor of the podcast. You can send us email, by the way. We were just looking at the email this week. It's the Standing By Podcast at gmail.com. No, it's not. I get it wrong. Hang on. I get it wrong every time. Every week I get this wrong. Go ahead, Ted.
Standing By the Podcast at gmail.com.
Ann Kearns knew what the email address was. Hi, Terry and Ted. Sunday at my house is now known as Sunday with Terry and Ted. There is something comforting about hearing your voices that just makes it feel like home. I wait until Sunday to play the podcast because I love hearing your laughter while I cook or bake. things that I usually do on a Sunday in preparation for my work week here in the Big Woke, LOL. I'll be listening. Sorry, that sounds like I'm a CSIS operative tapping into your texts and phone calls. Have a great week. Annie sent us a note and said to say hi to Jess too. Thank you, Annie.
The Big Woke would be the Big Smoke, which would be Toronto. I sent her back a note and said, you can send us baked goods.
Yes.
And use our title sponsor, the UPS Store Canada. Yes. And she mailed back and said, sure, let me know.
Just give the address.
Yeah, I was just kidding, Annie. You don't have to send us baked goods, but what a lovely gesture.
Speaking of the Big Smoke, thanks for the note, by the way, Anne. And again, the email address is
standing by the podcast at gmail.com. I got some nice in-person compliments last night for the podcast. I was at my Monday night AA meeting, and Mark and Victor both said they listened to and enjoy the podcast.
That's nice.
Yeah, and then the three of us got into a fist fight over the last piece of rum cake.
Rum cake at a meeting?
I did that on my 10-year sobriety anniversary. I brought a Black Forest cake, not realizing it was made with rum. Took the whole room out on a slip. You don't know me. Give me that fucking cake.
It's the in-person thing is nice. That's happened to me a number of times over the last month.
Yeah.
Where people, they recognize you and you think they're going to talk about of days of yore, but they say, boy, we really enjoy the podcast. As we've said on previous podcasts, that means a lot.
And when they do speak of days of yore, I point out the podcast to them. I was speaking to one guy our age the other night, and he goes, I don't know what a podcast
don't talk to me.
I'll ask my son. Yeah. That's what I do, too, with a lot of tech stuff. It's, I'll ask my boys.
Speaking of that, and I don't know if this is true because I read it online, but I read it in a what I consider to be a reputable source, that sources say that Barron Trump counseled his father on which podcast to appear on. That apparently when Donald Trump's team came to him and said, we think we should do some of these podcasts, he said, I want you to get in touch with Barron, and I want a list from Barron. Barron's 18 years old.
Yeah, and I've read that he's whip smart.
Yeah, very interesting.
And that if he wants to go down the political path, he has potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, the Trump derangement syndrome crowd are all saying now that when he was born, his mother was not yet a U.S. citizen, so he needs to be deported.
Very good. Sure, he'll get right on that.
At least they're reasonable.
Honestly. Hey, speaking of the Big Woke in Toronto, I want to know what your take on this is. They closed the highways for Taylor Swift. They shut down in the worst. It's the city in It's the city in the country with the worst traffic.
Montreal, even worse than here.
Yeah, Montreal's really, really bad. Calgary's really bad. Vancouver can be very bad at times. And I know there was a list published last week of the 20 top, traffic nightmare countries around the world or cities around the world. And Canada had 3 cities on it. Toronto was number 1. Anyway, if you saw the pictures of them, I was cursing under my breath because if you've ever been to Toronto, they closed down the Gardiner. Now, the Gardiner is like
our Ville Marie.
Yeah, exactly. It's like our Ville Marie or our Met. And they closed it down so that Taylor Swift could get to her hotel. And she had a motorcade, and everybody online was saying, well, she's bringing a lot of money to the city. And I thought, I don't know if that's what people who are stuck in traffic on wondering why their highways are closed are thinking. And I thought to myself, I get it. I know people go after the prime minister, whoever the prime minister is, about the motorcade and shutting down, things for presidents and prime ministers and visiting dignitaries. But should that apply to a pop star?
I don't know. Is there a practical element to it?
I don't know.
Or is it just a sop to her? Is it just as a courtesy to her that they're shutting down the highway?
I think it's a courtesy to her.
Well, then I don't agree with it.
There are some people who suggest it's in her contract that you have to close the roads when she gets to town. I don't know that to be true, but if that in fact is true, it's a bit of a circus thing.
Well, the cult of Taylor Swift, the Swifties.
Oh boy, are you going to get mail?
That's fine. I'll let them bring it on. They're as extreme in their own way as the Trump derangement syndrome crowd. Like, they love her as much as the Trump haters hate Trump. You know what I mean? I think you sent me a clip of someone who, like some woman who was crying.
It was a grown man.
Was it a man?
It was a grown man
who was crying
in the car reading the poem.
Oh, that.
It was the night before Taylor, and all through the house. And I thought, wow.
That's because his son was one of the dancers.
Yeah, his son was in the show and was going to be dancing.
I get that, but it was way over the top.
Yeah, you're talking about the woman. She was a young woman. Our guess is somewhere between 18 and 20. And she had just bought a Taylor Swift sweatshirt. And you have to line up. I don't know if you saw pictures of the lineups. The lineups for merchandise now at all arenas are nuts. But Taylor Swift's merchandise lineups they're like, I'm just guessing, over an hour wait to get there to buy your $100 sweatshirt. And this girl, I guess, had been in line and purchased it and was on camera for one of the media sources. And she couldn't control herself.
Yeah, she was sobbing.
She was absolutely
because she was so deliriously happy.
Yeah, she was sobbing in the way, you know, when someone who's sobbing is trying to tell you a story. My son, then after Mr. Swift thing. Couldn't understand what she had completely unglued. I think the same thing. Both Jess and I both think it's a little. It has the overtones of a cult.
For sure it does. And I think social media is largely responsible because we're overexposed to everything now. We are overexposed, as a result of which we don't react reasonably.
Yes.
And I'm probably just as guilty. Well, I am just as guilty.
Yeah.
I'll argue with people on Twitter about politics.
Yeah.
And I know that I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And quite often I'll respond to somebody or post something and then I'll delete it. It's the old, if you're angry, write a letter, then rip it up and throw it in the garbage. Just get it out of your system, right? But yeah, it's almost like brainwashing.
Well, I am not one to talk because I confessed we spent $800 on Springsteen tickets, but
yeah, but you weren't sobbing uncontrollably while you were beside the stage.
No.
And I know you, and you're a reasonable person, and it was a calculated decision that you made. I can make my wife happy by buying these tickets and giving her that experience of being
a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She shook Bruce Springsteen's hand.
Yeah.
And she smiled widely, and she loved it.
Yeah.
But
she didn't have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, she didn't pee her pants. She stayed relatively calm. I could understand what she was saying.
Yeah.
And Jess and I, just for fun, we were looking last week at the Ticketmaster website, and tickets for, if they were available, they were mostly resale, were available for Taylor Swift anywhere between $6,000 and $13,000.
Well, I saw
a seat.
Yeah, I saw online like front and center for $24,000.
That's, you have to take a mortgage out for that.
Yeah, I don't even know if I make that much in a year anymore.
I get it, especially when you're doing things for your kids.
Yeah, smoke them if you got them.
I guess if you have the money, that's great. And but I guess the days of your mom and dad saying because we can't afford it. Yeah. I guess those days are over.
Seems like yeah.
So you're not. I don't agree with closing the highways for a pop star. I think that's disrespectful.
No, if it's being done
to the population
as a courtesy to that individual, then I definitely, if there's a practical element to it,
yes.
If otherwise, there would be mayhem if their motorcade going into the public domain would cause mayhem. Then close it down and get her to where she's going, and then reopen it. But if it's just as a courtesy to her, then no.
That's what it seemed to be to me. And
Call an Uber there,
believe
Taylor.
me, do not wade into a Taylor Swift thing online. You'll never get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come for you. The Swifties come for you, and they're like, they come full bear.
I'll let them come. Bring it on. Yeah. I wonder if Gunther and Gunther had a motorcade to their event. We had a couple of guys on. We played a video of a couple of guys, and I'll let the cat out of the bag. I think it was 2 episodes ago. Gunther and Gunther, 2 German fashion icons from Gunt TV in Germany. It's actually my son Sam and his friend Tom.
Right.
And they spent the entire weekend at. It's kind of a fringe fashion show that was going on at the Billy Bishop Airport in Toronto, the island airport in Toronto. And they passed themselves off as these 2 eccentric German fashion icons. And Sam told me everybody at the event bought into it. They thought they were actually 2 guys from Germany. And they posted a bunch of videos. You can follow them on Instagram at Gunt TV, Gunt TV.
Did anybody who spoke German approach them?
I don't know. I'll have to ask Sam that because the jig would be up there.
Yeah, the jig is up. That reminds me of a World War II movie.
Well, yeah, like I don't, I think their German is probably like Hogan's Heroes German, even though they wouldn't know who Hogan's Heroes is. Yeah. But they really sold it well.
Yeah, did they ever?
Yeah,
you follow it on.
Yeah, they're what they did was the equivalent of dancing like nobody's looking.
Yes.
Like they just don't, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They don't care. And it was really, really funny.
Yeah, and incredibly well produced.
Well, that's another thing. They both have great acting chops, great comedy chops, and great filmmaking chops. So their videos are really good. It's state-of-the-art video.
You can follow them on Instagram. Did you say that already?
Yes.
Okay.
At Gunt TV, Gunt TV. It's funny. I'm biased. He's my son.
But I thought it was very funny too. Yeah. And like I said, I was just stunned by the production value and the bravery. Bravery is the wrong word, but
the chutzpah.
The chutzpah. Chutzpah is a better word for it.
Yeah.
Because I've known Sam since he was a baby, and he's like you say, they bought completely in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talked to my mom about it, and she said, "Well, I had to hide that from my Facebook timeline because I don't." She said, "I don't get it." She said, "I know that times are different, but a lot of the lifestyle today, it's just so different from when I grew up." And I said, "Mom, they're not living that lifestyle. They're mocking it.
Yes.
Like it's parody, it's satire. Right. They're mocking it." And it went over her head, just like a lot of things, as you get older, things go over your head when, or if you're younger, things from, we probably make references that go over people's head.
Like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
We're not fans.
I had to explain to my mother, though, that Sam and his friend Tom were, they were mocking that lifestyle. Yeah. They weren't living it.
Yeah. Is she back on the podcast?
Mom?
Yeah?
I don't think so. No.
Because we swore too much.
We did.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I posted something yesterday on Twitter from Sugar Sammy, who is a sponsor of this podcast and who has been, I don't know if you've seen some of the clips from France Talent, whatever It's the French version of America's Got Talent.
And he's one of the judges.
Yeah, he's one of the judges. 4 million people a week watch that show in France. Gives you an idea of how Sammy is doing. And yesterday, I retweeted just a terrific 4-minute piece of him having fun with the audience, I think in Gatineau. And it's a great example. If you follow me on Twitter, you can find it. And if you follow Sugar Sammy on social media, and you should be following him, you can have a look at some of this crowd work that he does. And speaking of brave and fearless, he's just so good at it. I don't know how to put it in words. I think what you have to do is go to sugarsammy.com or go to his Facebook page or follow Sugar Sammy on Twitter or Instagram. He almost posts daily. It's almost a daily post of crowd work in different parts of the world. He's doing stand-up shows in the United States, and he's got a busy 2025 planned.
He's got a Canadian tour that kicks off in the new year, and if you missed him in Montreal in the fall, worry not. There are plenty of shows in the spring after he goes out west and does parts of Ontario and Atlantic Canada. He's back in Montreal on March the 7th, and he's going to spend a good chunk of March in Montreal. He'll also be doing some shows in Ontario, but a ton of shows. Go to sugarsammy.com, and there are shows, multiple shows in Montreal during March, and Quebec City and Gatineau in April. So plenty of opportunities to see Sugar Sammy if you live in Montreal or Quebec or the Ottawa area coming up in March, but don't dilly-dally. Get the tickets now.
Yeah, they go quickly.
Yeah, buy them.
People
buy
wait.
them for yourself for Christmas.
This is a great Christmas gift. A couple of Sugar Sammy tickets. And by the way, if you happen to be listening to this podcast across the country, he is this time going to places like Moncton, for example.
Moncton, Charlottetown, Halifax, Fredericton.
Yeah. Go to sugarsammy.com, as Ted says, and you'll get a list of the cities. All you got to do is click on Pick Your City, I think is what it is on the website.
And an opportunity, as Terry mentioned, to look at right on his homepage, all of his social media accounts are listed. Have a look.
Yeah, you could
have a look and see what
you
he
could
can
spend
do.
a couple of hours just looking at his crowd work. And you just watch one of those pieces, and believe me, you're going to want to buy tickets. And as you pointed out last week on the podcast, Ted, great bang for your buck.
Oh, yeah.
Entertainment-wise, you know, we're talking about $13,000 Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah. I don't know how much Sammy's tickets are, but by comparison, talk about bang for your buck. Well, let me click on here. Maybe
entertainment and unique. There's nothing... You've never, if you've been to comedy shows before, you think I'm lying, but I'm telling you, there's nothing like Sugar Sammy.
No, under $100 a ticket.
There you go.
For a good ticket,
there
too,
you go.
Up towards the front.
Sugarsammy.com. So on Saturday, I know you don't have Netflix, so you didn't fall for it. I'm sorry to say Jess and I fell for it. We fell for the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson bullshit. Nonsense, craziness. It
Publicity stunt.
Yeah, it is a. I can't even begin to describe you what a circus it was, and it started at 8 o'clock. So you tuned into Netflix at 8 o'clock, and I'm familiar with boxing. I get how it works. In boxing, there's an undercard, or 2, or 4, or 5.
Well, there's an undercard that includes 2 or 4 or 5 bouts.
Right.
Yeah.
And this undercard went on like your Aunt Edna's ass.
Apparently, a couple of fights on the undercard were pretty good, though, I was told.
Yeah, they were okay, but like everybody else, I was looking for, we tuned in for the main event.
Sure.
So the TV went on at 8 o'clock. At 12:30 in the morning, at around 12:15, they began to introduce the fighters.
Where was it? Was it in Vegas?
It was in where the Dallas Cowboys play football.
Oh, okay. So it was not out west. It was It was late at night where the actual event took place.
Yeah, and it was like I said to Jess, in some ways, this circus, because Jake Paul he was a YouTube influencer who turned himself into a boxer and has had some questionable matches, including this one that he was paid $40 million for. And he came out in a green convertible with flashing lights, and he was wearing $100,000 cape or something. Like it was kind of absurd. I kept waiting for Gladiator to stand in the middle of the ring and go, "Are you not entertained?" Yeah. It had that vibe to it. You know what I mean?
At the end, I don't know if you saw this. I think that's after the fight.
That's before. That's
is that before the fight? So
yeah,
he's got this gorgeous blonde who's barely clad on his arm, and a guy called Mike Bove on Twitter said, I loved this. Jake Paul looking like an Eastern European human trafficker killed in the first 10 minutes of a Jason Statham movie.
I loved this tweet. I want to read this from Ian Malcolm 84 because this resonated with me when it was over. The next morning, Jess and I were talking about this exact same thing. Paul Tyson, meaning the match, is a perfect microcosm of our times, anchored in nostalgia, hyped by modernity, and in the end, shallow, hollow, degenerate, demoralizing, devoid of soul, and both profiting and glorifying the worst elements of society.
Just like Taylor Swift.
You're really going to hear from the Swifties. That's
a perfect synopsis.
Yes, I thought it was a perfect synopsis, and I was absolutely guilty of it because 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and I'm going to say something, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about too. One of the quote unquote in quotes best fights of the night were two women fighters.
Yeah, and apparently that decision was a bad one.
It was.
Yeah,
and I'm not a fan.
Of women fighting.
Just that kind of brutality, and it's not for me. If it's women are allowed and should that's their thing, and they love the sport and they love to box. I don't like watching it.
You like a woman to be a lady.
Well, okay, call me like 1955 Terry,
that's fine
whatever.
Too. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Watching two ladies kick the shit out of each other, and one had a deep, deep gouge, the kind of gouge in her over in her eyelid that would have made you faint, and they kept putting a close up, and they were covered in blood, and and it just. I said to Jess. Jess said, "Yeah, this is a really good fight." I said, "Yeah, it's just not my thing." So 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, Jess says to me, "Is this fight ever going to happen?" And I said, "Yeah, it's the undercard." And we were like those people that we wanted to, it was like driving by a car accident.
Yeah.
We had, it was 11:30 and we'd already watched hours of this nonsense. And I said, well, we have to stay up. We have to stay up and watch the main event. And the main event was kind of sad.
Everything I read suggested that it was obvious right out of the gate that Mike Tyson was too old to be in the boxing ring, even with an internet influencer who had taken some boxing lessons.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's 58, and Jake Paul's 27 or 28, I think.
That said, if I ran into Mike Tyson at a bar, I wouldn't tell him to go fuck himself thinking that I can take him out, because that's not going to happen.
No, and a lot of people are suggesting that maybe the fight was fixed, because if you see video of Mike Tyson training, the punches looked pretty fast and pretty deadly in training. And I said to Jess, well, that's, because he's not fighting somebody, he's just sparring in the ring when he's training. But I thought to myself, if Mike Tyson throws a punch in the first round and catches Jake Paul on the chin, he's going down.
Yeah.
Even at 58. Yeah. But Mike Tyson's legs kind of looked like licorice.
Yeah.
His upper body was, he'd obviously trained and he was in good shape. But the people watching the fight, I'd like to call them commentators, but they weren't professional broadcasters. They kept making references to his legs and how weak his legs were. Anyway, it was quite a spectacle. I fell for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I did. Won't do it again, but maybe I will, because we had Netflix and it was free and we weren't doing anything.
Everybody was talking about
on
it
a Saturday night.
So you wanted to see what the circus was all about.
Yes. Are you looking at my notebook?
It's very nice. Can't understand any of your writing.
No.
A, because it's upside down, and B, because it's hand scratching.
I was at a dentist last week, and they asked me to fill out a form, and the receptionist said, "You write like a doctor."
Yeah, I can't. I still do the New York Times crossword pen and paper.
Yeah.
And I had taken a picture of the completed crossword and sent it to someone to try to impress them. and she wrote back to me like, what letter is that? That's not even a letter.
Hey, let's take this opportunity to do the elves thing. Do you have that in front of you?
Elves Filling Shelves.
Elves Filling Shelves
is a West Island charity that was started by a young lady named Christy Westlake and her children. She says, 5 years ago, my sons, 7 and 9 years old, were inspired to step up their holiday acts of kindness, and Elves Filling Shelves was born as a result of their passion for giving back to their community. So what they do is they collect gifts, basic necessities such as food and toiletries, as well as specifically tailored gifts that would apply to gender, age, interests, needs, etc., for each family member. And it's West Island families supporting other West Island families, families who have supporting families who have not. And last year, they didn't have enough to go around. There was not enough to facilitate all the families who were in need. And when you think West Island, you don't think of families in need necessarily.
Yeah.
But I got news for you. Not everybody on the West Island is wealthy and living down by the lake. There are families on the West Island in need, and Elves Filling Shelves is there to help them out this holiday season. Go to their Facebook page, Elves Filling Shelves. Learn more about them, and if you can help them out on an individual level, great. If you have a company that maybe can supply something to help them help families in need, please have a look. Elves Filling Shelves on Facebook.
Yeah, growing up on the West Island, that I understand how that myth got perpetuated that, people of means live on the West Island, and there are people of means that live on the West Island, to be sure. But like all other communities, there are corners of the communities that need help. And that sounds like a great organization.
Yeah, it sure does. You can also check out the 33rd annual Toy Tea, which Terry and I will be attending with our pinkies extended. That's put together by our great and good new friend and philanthropic dynamo, Ginger Petty, and that's happening on November 29th. That basically gets together, raises funds to gather toys for children who are living with their mothers in domestic violence shelters. And you can find out more about that by going to, holy smoke, that's tiny font. toytmontreal.org. toytmontreal.org. It takes place November 29th. There are 2 sittings at a very swanky location that has requested that it not be named publicly.
So swanky, they want to remain anonymous.
That's right. But if you go to the website, toytmontreal.org, you'll see where it's happening, and you'll be supporting a great cause. And if you go to the afternoon session, you'll see us 2 guys there with our suits and ties.
Yes. Ties? I guess we need ties.
Yeah.
Suits and ties. Duly
jacket and tie. At the very least.
Duly noted. Are you at that point? You told me to look up a phone number before when you went to the washroom, and I was looking at my email and I couldn't read it, so I used the phone to magnify it. Are you at that point?
No, I just take my glasses off and just
hold it right in front of your face. Wanted to mention this, tip of the cap to Bill Hoagland. If you don't know that name, Bill Hoagland was the Walter Cronkite of news in this city for many, many, many years. In the days of CF 12, Bill Hoagland was and is your classic
old school television anchorman.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And he was honored this past weekend by the Quebec Federation of Professional Journalists. It's an association that represents about 1,500 members of the press in Quebec. They gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was the first time that honor was given to a non-Francophone journalist in the province.
That's impressive.
How about that?
Yeah.
And he was unable to attend, but the conference was in Trois-Rivières. Bill started at CF in 1961. He started in radio, and in 1964 he went to television, and he covered so many things in the 1960s. Boy, he was really worked at a great time in news because it was the Quiet Revolution, the FLQ crisis, all kinds of other things that went on in society. He's a hell of a journalist.
Yeah, and journalists, that was during a time when journalists reported the news.
Yes.
And didn't slant it to fit their own personal or their news agency's agenda, which you see a lot now.
And he's alive and well and enjoying retirement. And he had a nice speech that he recorded for the event to thank the organizers, which you can see online at CTV News. If you want to see Bill Hoagland, he looks terrific. He sounds terrific.
That's good
and
to hear.
He was a true classic, so I thought we would mention that.
And a real gentleman like our friend Pierre Hood,
boy,
who was honored 2 nights ago at the Bell Center for his induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I did not see it.
Did you see I watched the ovation last night.
No, but I heard it was like spine-tingling.
Yeah, it was a typical Bell Center Canadians fans ovation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to text Pierre later on today because I'm sure he didn't sleep last night because I'm sure he was overwhelmed by it. He gave, unsurprisingly, the most elegant and beautiful and dignified speech. He was on the ice.
Awash in humility and gratitude, no doubt.
Absolutely 100% correct. Do yourself a favor. It's on YouTube. Go find it. Pierre Hood had a hell of a week. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I have to admit, I'm one of those guys that looks at those things now, and I get a little bit teary-eyed, and I got teary-eyed on Pierre's behalf. His daughter was there, his conjoint Lynn was there, and he just looks so pleased and moved by the event, by the ovation, which of course in his speech he turned back on the crowd and said, it's you people that have brought me here, kind of thing. Speaking of the Habs, Ted, now look at sports. Do you think they're going to? Do you think Marty St. Louis is in trouble?
Well, I did up until the last 2 games. They've won their last 2 games and outscored the opposition 8-1. So I think he gets a reprieve. But leading up to that, there was people who know more about hockey than me and follow the Habs closer than me. Thought, not all of them, but some of them I would see online, thought there was a coaching issue. So, I don't know. It's a young team with a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They can be fun to watch.
Yeah. They also can be very boring to watch, I find.
Yeah?
Yeah, a couple of times I've thought.
They shouldn't be because they've got so much exciting young talent.
I know. And I don't know if that, is that the, I don't know. The game is fast today, but some days I think, when I'm watching the game, I personally think the rink is too small now. I do.
The ice surface?
I do.
You think they should go to a European-sized ice surface?
Yeah, I would love to see that. I know it's not a widely held,
widely shared.
Thank you, belief. But I just think the players are so big and they're so fast, and I find especially the style that's played today. They play like inside these little boxes. There's when you're in the defending zone or you're in the offensive zone, it seems confined to me. And so for players, like Marner and Matthews and, some of the Suzuki, some of the outstanding talent, I think if they had a little more room to breathe, it'd be a lot more exciting to watch.
Yeah, it would take some getting used to, I think.
It sure would.
And I would imagine the players who come from Europe playing on the smaller surface must get some getting used to as well.
I would imagine.
I don't even know what the difference in size is.
Yeah, I used to, in my referee days, I used to be able to tell you how big the crease was, how big. I remember, all of those measurements, when you start to memorize the rule book, but I haven't refereed a hockey game in a very, very long time. We
missed you on Saturday night at the comedy fundraiser at the Marriott Airport In-Terminal Hotel.
Yes.
Ken Doran and Charity Promotions put together another fundraiser to benefit the Teresa Deller Palliative Care Center on the West Island and the Strangers in the Night Foundation. It was called the Headliners 2. You and I hosted last year.
Last year, yeah.
Christine Long hosted this year, along with Steve Traynor, our old buddy from Days Gone By, who got called in at the last minute because Jay Farrar, who was supposed to co-host, got sick, and so Steve had to step in and did a terrific job, as did the comedians, Kate Davis, Gino Durante, and in particular, Mike Patterson, who was on with us last week.
Yeah.
He killed it.
Yeah.
And so did Derek Sagan.
Yeah.
And it was a great night of comedy. A lot of money was raised, and our friends from Robert Richer Jewelers got a shout out. Pierre and Linda were not in attendance; they couldn't make it. But Linda told me that Pierre designed a compassion necklace for the Teresa Deller Palliative
They're
Care
great supporters
Center. Oh yeah, well,
of Teresa Deller's.
that's part of what makes Robert Richer Jewelers such a great organization, and
Yes.
great small business to be involved with. They sponsor the podcast, and we're so happy that they got on board because, not only do they offer terrific goods and services, but they're involved in the community. They're good people who do good things. And they were front and center, not in person, but they got a nice shout out at the fundraiser, the comedy fundraiser the other night because of the great support.
As well they should have, because I think they've been involved for a while.
Yeah. And Linda told me to refer back to the postal strike and the Port of Montreal labor dispute. Linda told me, please tell people on the show this week to shop early, to order early for this Christmas season because things are slowed down.
Yes.
Things are backed up. Yeah. She said the diamonds that normally arrive in 3 or 4 days are now taking 2 weeks.
Yeah. I called Richer Jewelers the other day to thank them for the chocolates that we were talking about last week.
Did you finish them?
We did.
Yeah. Aren't they good?
So I called the shop to say thank you to Pierre last week, and when they're busy, there's an answering machine because it's a small shop. They're not.
There's just the three of them there, Pierre and Linda and Carol.
Yeah, so they were probably busy with customers, and I left Pierre a message, and he sent me a note on Facebook Messenger saying, "I just got your message about the chocolates. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Really loved hearing Ted going through them on the podcast."
It's true. When I was listening back to last week's podcast,
you're going to eat those? Well, that's the kind of people they are. Pierre went to Belgium and was working because he gets invited by the diamond people in Belgium.
Antwerp. Diamond capital of the world.
Yeah. And he found time and thought of us while he was there and bought both of us chocolates.
Yeah, he bought Terry liquor-filled chocolates and me non-liquor-filled chocolates.
Yeah, to give you an idea, that's another example of how thoughtful he is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I would have eaten the liquor-filled. Those don't count. Give me those.
Go and see them and see what we're talking about. They're lovely people, and whether you have a small budget or you've got a big event coming up, some people go in there for 25th anniversaries. Some people go in there for, their kids' prom, whatever it is you have. They treat you with respect and kindness and will walk you through it no matter your budget. They're lovely, lovely people, and they're right across from the Flim Flam.
They are. They're right across from the Dorval Mall at 309 Dorval Avenue.
So yesterday I was on, I wanted to talk about this. I think it's COVID related. I'm not sure. I was on the phone with a bank, and I love my bank. The people at the bank that I've been with for a very long time. It's the Bank of Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. And you probably know if you're online, the Bank of Nova Scotia has been having trouble with their internet systems these last 10 days or so. I ended up at the Bank of Nova Scotia because when I went to work at Chaume in 1984, they used the bank at the corner of Sherbrooke and Green. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any pants. I didn't have any. Honest to God,
I'd like to take out a loan so I can buy some pants.
In 1984, when I arrived in Montreal to start the morning show at Chaume, I had one pair of glasses that had a giant piece of tape on it because my glasses were broken. And I had 3 pairs of jeans from a promotion we ran in Winnipeg with Street Heart and some T-shirts. That's it. That's all I had. I think I had a bed.
Okay.
It was the whole band music thing didn't work out very well. So when I got to Montreal, I said to the people at the radio station, I said,
I need pants.
I need pants, and I don't have a bank. So anyway, so that's where your check was deposited. That's how I ended up at the Bank of Nova Scotia, and I've been with them ever since. And this week they had some internet problems, as all banks do. But when I had to call, you call the number on the back of your Visa card, and you do all the things, the gifts and when were you born and what size are your shoes and what's your mother's maiden name and all of that. And then a voice, recorded voice says, "We are experiencing an unexpected volume in calls. Your current wait time is over 1 hour. Please maintain your place in line, blah, blah, blah. Your call is important to us." I would like to make a plea to companies to stop saying that.
Yeah.
Because
It's so disingenuous.
it's so disingenuous, and you're on the phone, and I sat with my laptop because I'm retired now. I don't have, I'm not running out to do things. And I thought, I got the time. I've got a cup of tea here and my laptop's here. I'll watch something on YouTube and the phone is next to me.
You can also put it on speaker.
Yeah.
It's not like
And-
the old
yeah.
days where you would have to actually hold
Yes,
it up
and
to
stand
your
in the
ear
kitchen.
for an hour. Yeah.
And I was, do that lovely music they play, and every 10 minutes they're like, "Please, your call is very important to us." And I started to think about, we've been trained. I thought to myself, I can't hang up. I have to have this problem solved. And their nonsense about your call is important to us is bullshit. My call is not important to it. They know I have to speak to them, but we've been trained to, and I think it's since COVID, it's been like this for a long time, but I think since COVID, there was a whole, we don't have the staff, and we've been trained to put up with a lot of nonsense so the companies
Inconvenience.
can save,
Yeah.
so the companies can save money with smaller staffs.
Yeah.
Or am I just paranoid?
No, I don't think you're just paranoid. It's, we've been trained to put up with those inconveniences, and we've also been trained, and this is on us, to accept higher prices, price gouging. I paid $16 for 2 Diet Cokes the other night. I thought to myself, I may as well
Such a deal.
May as well start drinking again. $16 for 2 Diet Cokes. But yeah, COVID was a turning point.
Yeah. And it seems to me like, big companies, any kind of quote unquote service line that you call, by and large are, not exactly, service oriented or helpful. And that's when you can understand the person on the other end of the line. Because a lot of the service calls now are exported into other countries. And there's, things like hotels and airlines, there's the whole, when you have an issue, the response by and large is, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
It's...
Well, that's why we like to hitch our wagons as a podcast to sponsors who are small local businesses, because you don't get that. When you call Merson, you don't get that.
It's so refreshing. It sounds like Ted and I planned this, but we didn't. But it's your point is well taken, because it's when somebody does something great and resolves a problem for you, if you have one, with a smile and in a hurry and in a timely fashion, it's stunning.
Yeah. You call Merson, Valerie, you get a recording of Valerie on the phone, especially at this time of the year because they're so busy. And at other times of the year, she might answer, live, but this time of the year, because they're busy with tire changes, you get a recording of Valerie saying, "Thank you for calling Merson. Someone will be with you in just a minute," and literally within a minute.
Yes.
It's usually Valerie on the phone. "What can I do for you?" Same with our friends and sponsors at Accutech Electric.
Yeah.
If Trish is not right there or Tom is not right there to answer the phone, they say, "Leave a message, we'll get right back to you."
And they do.
You leave a message, they get right back to you.
Yeah. I just think it's Mark Merson used to tell me that. He used to say to me, tell people if they have a problem, the owner's he's there. He's at the counter. Because even back then, he was, we were talking about how you needed to send a letter or an email to try and resolve something. These days when you unbox something and they say, please do not call the retailer. Please, if you have an issue, email us at our website. I just think it's something that we've been trained to do and have come to accept in this busy lifestyle.
We shouldn't accept it. We should kick up a fuss.
Yeah.
Or go to smaller local retailers where you can, like the Mersons, where they're busy right now. So, and the winter tire deadline's coming up December 1st by law.
Yes. Yeah, and we're November the 20th today as you're listening to this release.
Yeah. So give them a call. Last week, Valerie told me that they were already backed up about a week in terms of getting people in for their tire changes. So the sooner you call, the sooner you'll get in there, and they'll let you know what kind of shape your summer tires are in. You can store them there, and they always inspect your whatever tires you're changing. They will inspect, let you know the state of them, give you a heads up if you're going to need new ones the following season, so that you can
make plans.
Yeah, save some dough if that's what you have to do. And they'll always tell you the truth. They don't give you the oh boy, those are in rough shape. That's going to run you.
Yeah, we've told this story 1,000 times. That's how Ted and I both ended up there over 30 years ago. I had got taken, by somebody that knew
an unscrupulous
could
garage.
See me coming a while. Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah.
We can charge him a lot for this. And charge you for things you don't need doing. That doesn't happen. And if you're wondering why the waiting room at Merson is crowded at this time of the year, that's why. Because through word of mouth and years of great service and honesty, they've built a clientele that loves that joint and won't go anywhere else. And it's been passed on from generation to generation. And as you can tell, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, we love them.
Yeah. Same thing with Accutech Electric. That's another thing that you or I know nothing about. Electricity? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I really love the. It popped up in my feed again the other day. I saw it
too. Yeah, the guy biting the wire.
The guy that bit the wire without turning the power off. Yeah. It's kind of like the internet equivalent of asking your uncle to come over and fix your fuse box.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
And electricity, tragically, it can be the source of a lot of fires, especially this time of the year when everything is working overtime. And a lot of folks don't think about that when they move into either a new apartment or a new house. Or if you've bought a business and you've discovered that you've got to do rewiring, you got to look for a reputable company who knows what they're doing. And again, Accutech is one of those family businesses that we've come to love. They started in 1995. Tom's dad started Accutech and grew that business with the same kind of skill and honesty and decency that has become their reputation. When you call Accutech, you'll know right away. We immediately had a couple of friends of ours call Accutech when they came on board the podcast and told us that they handled them with kindness and decency and didn't hide anything and knew exactly what was coming. That's the thing about electrical work. Sometimes if you've had experience with electricians, they come to the house and go, well, I won't know until I get that wall off. I can't tell you how much it's going to be. That this is not the way they operate, and that's how they've become the business that they've become. You can go online and have a look at accutech.ca. It's ACUTECH. But call them, and you'll see what we're talking about. Trish will answer the phone.
Tell Trish we say hey.
Yeah.
You want to do the tweet sheet?
We can do the tweet sheet. We should do the tweet sheet. Let's do the tweet sheet.
Found three of the funnies on Twitter this week, including this one from @AOTakeo. First day in hell, Satan. Who keeps touching the thermostat?
That's perfect for this time of year, right?
Satan's a dad. From @Kip Conlon, fish sticks, more like fish sticks to my ribs. Am I right, empty apartment? He's very funny. He's a great follow, yeah. Kip Conlon, yeah. And for @Cool Math Game, first day as hostage negotiator, me taking the phone. Yellow! Loud explosion from inside the bank. I think I may have used that before, but it still made me laugh. Nobody likes an upbeat hostage negotiator.
Oh, boy. Hey, do you do that? Do you tell yourself jokes when you're alone having dinner?
What do you mean? Do I tell myself
Well,
jokes?
do you do that?
Oh, like that?
Yeah. Because when I lived alone, I talked to myself all the time.
I don't know. I don't
Maybe
think
I'm
so.
nuts.
I'll have to. Yeah, maybe you are.
Yeah.
I'll have to. I'll have to monitor that.
You must, though. I mean, like when you're cooking, you must say to yourself, "Oh, Christ, I forgot that."
No, not really.
You don't, eh?
No, I might
That's
talk. I might talk to the cat,
That's
but I don't
interesting.
think I talk to myself. And normally with the cat, it's "Would you shut up? I'll feed you when I'm done."
Isn't that strange? I almost think sometimes one of our cats has a watch on. You know, like, hey, it's 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock is feeding
My
time.
cat doesn't care what time it is.
Doesn't
Well,
matter?
you've seen the size of her.
Yeah.
She'll eat anything at any time.
Really? Does
Yeah.
she eat people food?
No.
No. It's got to, but it doesn't matter. Friskies, hoo-hoos, it doesn't matter what.
Well, no, she's very fussy. She likes.
Okay.
There's a particular soft. It's it might be Friskies. I don't know. It's some kind of pate. But I have to. Yeah.
I know what you're going to say because we go through the same thing.
And if I put in too much, she'll eat what she wants, and then the rest dries up, and she won't eat it.
No.
And there'll be a half full bowl of cat food, and she'll be looking at me and going,
"Where's the fresh stuff?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't you go, "Daddy's retired now."
No, I tell her to fuck off. That's what I do. Would you fuck off? Eat what's in there. Here it is.
Have you always been a cat lover?
Yeah, I like cats. Yeah.
I didn't like cats for the longest time.
No,
And-
I know you weren't a fan.
Yeah,
but,
Jess and I got together, and Finnegan just wrapped me around his
oh
finger.
yeah.
I
Well,
love.
if I was going to do
cats.
it again, and I love my cat, but if I was going to do it again, I would get a male. I find male cats are more affectionate than female cats. I find that they're lower maintenance emotionally. My experience
not our
with
guy.
no, eh?
Yeah.
My experience with male cats is like I say, I love my cat, but if I had to do it again, I'd get a male.
Finnegan, our guy cat, he's like he wants to know where we are at all times and wants to make sure we're home. And when we're not home, he's not good with that. And we have a female cat, and she's a bit more aloof, but she's
that aloof is a good word. That's what mine is.
Yeah.
She's aloof.
Yeah.
She'll sleep on my bed, but it's at the foot of the bed.
Right.
She won't come up
Yeah.
and snuggle next to me. She's not interested in that. She's just foot of the bed, and then first thing in the morning, it's on the floor beside the bed, just looking at me.
Yeah.
When are you going to get up and feed me?
We have the same thing. They're ready to get up like at 5-ish.
Yeah.
And everybody who has a cat knows this. And I cannot believe that you and I are sitting across
Talking
from
about
each
cats.
other
Yeah.
talking about our cat.
Yeah. You know what I really like? I don't know if you've ever seen this on Facebook, but I'll go down this rabbit hole sometimes on Facebook Reels. And I think I get fed them because I've looked at them, and I think the algorithm figures out, okay, he likes to look at this. There are some Facebook accounts that are tamed big cats, like lions, tigers, leopards, but they're tame, panthers. And they show, they're kept in what's the word I'm looking for? Like on a preserve or whatever.
Yeah.
But you see their trainers or their owners interacting with them.
Yeah.
And they're just like house cats.
Yeah, but-
except they weigh 1,000
Yeah.
pounds.
And can kill
they-
you with one swipe of the paw. Yeah. I just don't have any faith in that.
No, eh?
Well, because
Yeah.
how many times have you heard of
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to ask
Buddy
a
had
zoologist.
whatever,
Did
and
one
it
of
ate
the
him.
who were the two guys in Vegas?
Yeah, that's
Did one of them get killed by a tiger?
No, was nearly killed
Okay.
by the tiger.
Yeah, what are their names again?
Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah.
That's a prime example. The cats were really, really great for about 20 plus years. And then at one point, one of the cats was like, I've had enough of this fucking shit.
And Siegfried or Roy almost paid the ultimate price for it.
Yeah. One of them, they had stopped performing. If I'm not mistaken, and I might be, I know one of them is definitely gone. And the other one may still be with us. So it's either the late Siegfried or the late Roy, I'm not sure. I heard Billy Crystal on a podcast say this week, I don't know why they use that term, late, because they're not coming. The late Bob Hope, he's not coming. He's not late, he's not coming. I thought that was very, very funny.
That is good.
Yeah, I don't, I would not, would you go in like to a shark cage?
Well, no, not a shark cage, but sharks are not affectionate. Cats can be affectionate.
But would you go into, if there was a way you could pay like $30, $50 and go sit next to a Bengal tiger?
I sat next to,
I wouldn't do it.
I don't know if it was a cheetah or a leopard or a jaguar, one of the three in South Africa. We were at a place where you could pay and you could sit down and you could pet the cheetah or whatever it was. And and I was fine with that.
You were, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I do it every day because eventually maybe the odds would catch up with you.
That's what I think at some point the animals go, yeah, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting next to them, you're done.
But you can see on some of these videos that these big cats really love the person who's engaging with them.
Until they don't.
Yeah. But I mean, and when they don't, like I picked up my cat the other day and she wasn't happy with the fact that I picked her up and her claws came out and I got scratched on my leg and cut open. Yeah. But she's she's a house cat.
Yes.
If a tiger does that, well, first I'm not going to try to pick up a tiger, but let's say he gets annoyed and the claws come out and he takes a swing at you. That, as you say, that one swing could kill you.
Yeah. Are you going to put this in the show description?
Maybe I should, yeah.
Ted and Terry talk about their cats?
There you go. Perfect.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up another episode of This Nonsense. We didn't have a guest this week, but that's okay. Ted and I like to be alone sometimes.
We do.
We do.
Matthew, would you mind? We'd like to be alone.
Want to say thanks to our producer, Matthew, and to Pantelis and Mike Ward and Poseidon and the gang here that helps us with this podcast each and every week. It is weekly, by the way. We put an episode out every Wednesday morning, and we'll talk about Christmas break in weeks to come. Which is just around the corner. We would like to say thank you to the UPS store, the upsstore.ca, Sugar Sammy, sugarsammy.com, our good friends at the Mersons, our good friends at Accutech, and the good people at Robert Richer Jewelers. They are all supporters of the podcast, and we couldn't do it without them. So we appreciate that very, very much. Hope you follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. Standing By Podcast has those accounts. Don't forget to tell your friends or forward the episode if you can. We'd appreciate
Instagram as
that.
well, we're on.
And we're on Instagram. And that's all the housekeeping I think I have to do. Is it? Oh, the email, and we read the email every day, and we answer every letter, is
standingbythepodcast@gmail.com.
Talk to you next week.
Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada, delivering full-service solutions for your small business.